You know, the online course and education space is $1 million industry and you are so ready to tap into it. But what should your online course be all about? How can you define a profitable topic that will sell? Well, in today's episode, I'm diving into just that. We will be going through the 5 steps you need to take to discover your profitable online course topic. From looking at your passions and skills, doing market research, and validating your concept, I'm going to hand over the step-by-step playbook that you need. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Passive Project Podcast, where we talk about how to build your online business to make more income, more impact, and give you more freedom in your life. I'm Gemma Bonham-Carter, business strategist, mom of 2, lover of passive income, automation, and coffee. Welcome to the podcast. What's up, you guys? Really excited to have you back to another episode of the Passive Project Podcast. I am recording this. It's mid-afternoon right now. I just got back from a long walk with the kids and my husband, and it's kind of our daily routine right now, living in the time of COVID where everything has changed. We go out for these daily walks, and I had always been someone who had gone for a daily walk always, but even just by myself when the kids were still in school and in preschool, and I would go out and listen to podcasts and walk down by the river. And luckily we've been able to keep up that routine minus the podcast listening. So these days what it looks like is I pack up lunches for both of the kids, and we'd actually hung on to our double stroller, which we just hadn't gotten rid of it yet. And it has actually come in so handy. So even though my kids are getting too big for a stroller, they're 4 and 6 years old now, we still pop them in there, and I give them each their lunch box, and then my husband and I can just push the stroller at a faster pace, like the pace that we actually want to walk to get in. We both wear Fitbit, so we both like to get in those 10,000 steps every day. So we go for a nice, fast-paced walk along the river, and the kids eat their lunch, and then I don't have lunch mess to clean up. So it's all around this big win that we do in our day, and always just feel good afterwards. And it's such a nice, we come home and it's always a nice moment where I come up here to my desk and get a bit of work done, and both of the kids have quiet time in their rooms. It's like my little sliver of the day where everything kind of goes quiet in our house. And my kids don't nap anymore, but they're pretty good about going into their room and having quiet time. So anyway, that's what's happening right now in this household at this very moment, at the time of recording. And what I wanted to talk to you guys about today was about how to find your profitable online course topic, because I know that this can be what people, sometimes it can get people really tripped up or stuck on what that topic should actually be and how to pursue, creating a course business. Because I know for me, online courses have been what totally radically changed the game for me in terms of entrepreneurship and growing my own business. If you haven't heard my backstory before, basically I started a hobby blog a million years ago, back in 2010 when we bought our home, which was a fixer-upper. And I decided I wanted to share the, tales of fixing up and doing DIY projects on our house with family and friends. And I was following a couple of bloggers back in the day who were doing that, and I loved them, like Sherry and John from Young House Love, or Chris Loves Julia was another amazing blog. I was following those guys and just felt so inspired to do something myself. So I started a blog, ultimately ended up a few years in monetizing that blog and turning it into a really successful side hustle for myself. I still worked my 9-to-5 job in public health, but had this really amazing side hustle that actually made me money. And I started to get invited to speak at blogging conferences and just talk about the business of blogging. And that led me to my eyes being kind of opened up about teaching and giving other people education and knowledge and tools to be able to have some kind of success in their life. And in this case, it was around blogging. And so that's where my first course was really born. It was born out of these talks that I was giving at conferences and realizing that there was a desire for people to want to learn about, at the time for me, it was about how to monetize your blog, like turn a blog into a business. And so that was what spurred on my first course. And actually, I wasn't even going to make it a course. I was going to make it an ebook. That was what I was going to do, sort of where my mind went, because I'd seen other people write ebooks. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess that's how you disseminate information like this. But then I realized, I can't remember who it was that I first saw they had an online course, and the wheels just started turning for me. And I started to see more and more people launching courses and really doing it in all kinds of different niches. And I realized what an incredible way it was to, like, a really powerful way to be able to teach and create a community in a really sort of leverageable way, because it wasn't one-on-one. It was that one-to-many style, but you could still show up and deliver lessons and really get that connection with your students. And so I dove headfirst into creating my first course, which you can head on back to the episode called, I think it's called like how my first course was a complete flop. You can head back to that episode if you want to hear more about that story. That first course did not end up being a raging success, but that's okay. It led me on the path, which, has taken me to where I am today, and really allowed me to start to dive into what this whole world of online courses was about and start to learn the lessons I needed to learn in order to make this a success for myself. And so the second course I launched, which was my course around how to launch an online shop as a blogger, and it was called Launch Your Shop. That was the one that ended up really, turning the corner for me. It became really popular. I was able to scale that course and grow my sales in a really significant way, and like hit that 6-figure mark for the first time ever with that course. And really it changed the whole trajectory of my business. And since then I've launched more programs. Today, my 2 flagship programs are Course Creator School and then the Passive Project, which is my membership that kind of comes after Course Creator School. So it really, I have never, especially in the time that we're living in right now, where, the coronavirus is happening and the whole world is in this sort of funny time of this strange time that we're living through. I've never been more grateful to be in this industry, to be a course creator, and to have a business where I can do the entire thing from home. Like, I've actually had the most profitable months ever in my business since coronavirus happened. So I've just never been more grateful for the flexibility and the opportunity that this kind of business has allowed. So anyway, that was like a big old long introduction. I did not mean to ramble on for that long telling you my story. You can head on back to that episode if you want to hear more about my first course. But I just wanted to set the stage for, if you are somebody who's thinking about launching an online course, I really would encourage you to actually dive into this and really make it a real priority for yourself, and look at it very seriously as something that you can add to your business, whether this is a brand new business that you're wanting to create, or if you already have a service-based business, a one-to-one business. Maybe you're already a content creator or a blogger or an influencer, and you're looking to monetize it with a new revenue stream. Like, I really can't think of any niche or topic or subject area where a course couldn't fit. Like, I really think it can fit into almost everybody's business model. So let's dive into how to actually find your profitable online course topic. There's kind of 5 big things that I wanted to bring up in today's episode to help you navigate that question. So the first one is to look at your own skill set. So you can take out a piece of paper with a pen and do a little brainstorming sesh, or get a Google Doc open on your computer, whatever feels easiest, and just really brainstorm out your skills. Like, what inherently do you know that you're really good at, you've always been good at? What are some of the things that maybe you've been trained in or you have learned over time? Maybe these have been things that you learned in some sort of academic setting. Maybe you've taken training programs. Maybe it's been something with your career or work so far that you've created skills around. Like, just write everything down. Even if you don't think that they're going to be relevant, write it down. And the other thing to think about is like, what do people always come to you for? Because that can give us a real clue as to what our inherent skill sets are. So is there like a recurring theme that people tend to always come and ask you about? Like, my husband's a really good problem solver, and he's also very talented in terms of like tech. And so he's always the person that family comes to when they're having, well, any kind of tech issue, but like, and to solve any kind of problem. Like, he sees things in terms of patterns and numbers, and he can like, he's like that type of guy who is like always good at puzzles and just has that kind of logical brain. So think of that for yourself. Like, what are the things that people often come to you for? And then a kind of a fun exercise to do with this, to take it one step further, is to actually ask your family, friends, colleagues, whatever, what your top 5 strengths are. So the way that you can do this is just to simply put together an email that just says like, hey there, I'm just doing some research for my business development. And I was hoping that I could like pick your brain and do a little bit of like market research, you could call it. Could you hit reply and write me back with what you would say are my top 5 strengths, and just send that out to like 5 or 10 people. And watch what comes back, because it's actually so fascinating to see. Sometimes what we see in ourselves is very different from what other people see in us. And it's often difficult for us to really see our true strengths as easily as other people do. And so having other people be able to give their input as to what they see your strengths are, it can just be really eye-opening. And I did this just as a little test with, like, I sent it to my husband, my mom, a couple of friends, and what came back was really flattering. I mean, it's going to be a nice ego boost because they're saying all kinds of nice things about you. But B, what was really neat was to see the commonalities. Like, pretty much everybody who I sent that to, there were some common themes of stuff that came back, like stuff around my organization abilities, that came back from many people. Stuff around me as a teacher and a leader came back. And then stuff around me being very like warm and welcoming and a good listener. That was like another common theme. And so for me, what was really interesting was to actually think through those and see to see the commonalities, but B, to sort of be able to say to myself, like, okay, like, these really are my strengths. Like, I am a natural teacher and I need to lean into that more. And so for me, obviously, it's like very appropriate that I am a course creator and I create content that teaches and inspires and gives people like how-to information. So I would really recommend that you do that just to your close network of family or friends. Send that email and see what comes back. It's really a fun exercise. So that's number 1, is to go through your skills and just really brainstorm out what your skills are. And then the second thing I want you to do to find that profitable online course topic is to think through your passions. And so your passions are going to be different from your skills. I'm very naturally skilled at organization and being highly effective with my time and productive. That's not necessarily a passion of mine, right? Like, there are people who are passionate about organizing, but I'm not one of them. So that's where, these two things can be really different. So in terms of your passions, think through, like, what are the things that you could literally talk about all day long? And like, they're probably the things that you do talk to your partner or your friend or a parent about on and on and on, right? So what are those things that you could talk about all day long? And don't worry if these are very diverse. That's totally cool. I mean, most people do have really diverse passions. What is it that you like wake up thinking about in first thing in the morning, or the thing that you can't stop thinking about at night as you're going to sleep? What's the thing that like never feels like work when you're doing it? It's just you feel totally like in flow and things just come easily and it just feels really natural. What are those things? So write those things out, all of your passions. So for me, I mean, I have a ton of these. Like for me, definitely one is around decorating and interior design and real estate. And I'm super passionate about all of those things. And I mean, obviously I am, given that my first ever online business was a blog that was all about DIY projects, do-it-yourself projects around the home, right? I took a passion and I ended up creating a business around it. So maybe and for me, another giant passion of mine is around digital marketing. Like I just find it so interesting, and I can read books about digital marketing or online business. Like I just devour them. Similarly, I devour books about like financial literacy and like understanding money better. Like I love those kinds of books and love reading more about that. So what are those things about you? Write out all of your passions and then start to really identify. I mean, maybe you don't need to do this because you're already there and you've already started your business around a particular passion. So if that's the case, you're going to be more interested in hearing like steps 3 and 4 and 5. But if you haven't created your business yet, then start to look at those passions and your skill sets and start to think about where they intersect. Like, what are the passion, like what's the passion that you'd really like to create a business around? And then look at your skill sets and start to think, okay, well, how can these work together? And how can I really leverage what I am truly good at and have experience in, and like what I can bring to the table that is unique? So those are the first two things, is to really look at our own skills and passions. Now we're going to get into some more nitty-gritty stuff. So the next step is to look for a problem in the marketplace that needs to be solved. Because here's the thing, an online course, like a successful online course, is going to do just that. It is going to solve a problem in the marketplace. That is the foundation of a successful online course, and it's the foundation of a successful online business, is that it needs to solve a problem. So you can do this in a lot of ways. You could go and check out Facebook groups that have your ideal target audience in there. Like let's say that you've decided you're going to pursue a business around health and wellness, or it could be like around nutrition, let's say, even more specifically within that field. Well, then hop on into some free Facebook groups that are like for that particular niche, and start to actually look and see what people are writing and talking about in terms of problems. And this is going to take you time. This is going to be like you deep diving, going down the Google rabbit hole for a while and really starting to understand what people are saying about that particular, like in that particular niche or topic that you have chosen. You can also look on Google, like just doing simple Google searches and kind of following the trail. You could look on YouTube and see, okay, how many other videos are in this particular niche, and what are the kinds of questions that people are answering in the videos. But then also, if you go to the commentary that comes underneath the videos, are people commenting? And if they are commenting, do they have follow-up questions? Like, what are the questions? That's the big thing that you're trying to get at here. And then if you do have an audience already, then the idea is, like, again, you are still just trying to discover what's the problem in your marketplace that needs to be solved. So you need to ask your audience. So whether that's really engaging them, like let's say you use Instagram, you can really engage your audience on Instagram. And this doesn't have to be just a boring old, like, what are you struggling with kind of question in an Instagram story with a box for people to respond to. Get more creative than that. Do a series of Instagram stories where you get people to like vote on different things or respond to quizzes, or like just get more creative about the types of questions that you're asking, so that you're drilling down more deeply into ultimately what they're struggling with, but ultimately what they're wanting to create for themselves. Like what are what are the transformations or the solutions that they're really looking for. The other thing is to hop on one-on-one calls. Like if you already have an audience and you have the ability to hop on one-to-one calls with your target audience, do that. Like get chatting with people like in real life, not just in the DMs, to really get a better sense of where they're at. It took me a long time to get comfortable to do this. And I remember the first time I did like a round of one-to-one calls with people who had purchased a program from me. And I was blown away at the insight that I was able to get from those calls. And so I really encourage you to make that available to your audience, however you want. Like it can be via some emails to your audience where you invite them for some one-on-one calls. It could just be social media posts that you put out there to get them to book a time on your calendar. These can just be 15-minute or 30-minute calls where you can gather some really good intel and insight into where they're at and what their struggles are, and then ultimately how you can solve them. And then the other thing you can do is also just have a survey, like a Google form or Typeform or SurveyMonkey, like use whatever platform is easiest for you and create a survey on there that asks some really pointed questions that are both a mix of multiple choice type questions and some open-ended ones where you can really start to gather information from your audience. So that's step number 3, is like really deep diving into what are the problems that need solving. So we've gone through what are our skills, what are our passions, and now where are the actual, like we're identifying the problems that need to be solved. Then the next step we're going to take is to, now that we have an idea of like, we're getting closer, right? At this point, we're getting closer on our topic. We're getting closer to understanding maybe you've narrowed it down to a couple of key problems. Now we're going to do some market research on our competitors. So at this point, you have an idea of where you're going. So now it's time to go out and see, okay, who else is doing something similar in this area? And I want you to create a spreadsheet so you can keep all of this information in one spot and just start to dive into like whether this is, you can do this via Instagram or doing just plain Google searches or hopping into Facebook groups and kind of checking things out from there. Really look at who are they, what are their programs all about? Like what's their offer? Is it a course? Is it a coaching program? Is it a set of templates? Is it a membership? Like what are they offering? Or maybe it's services. What are they offering? What do the offers include? So sometimes, like usually you can get yourself to some kind of sales page or information page where it's going to give you an idea of the curriculum that's involved in their program, like what's included when you purchase their program, and then it'll say like what they're charging. And then if you can somehow find out whether they've had many students or not, like yes, we can go and see how big their followings are, and that helps us to understand whether there is general interest in, people who are talking about that particular topic. But if you can go one step further and actually try and see whether they've made many sales of, like if they've had a lot of students or clients, that's really helpful. So do they have a lot of student or client wins, for example, on their webpage or on their social media? Like often those might be in somebody's Instagram highlights or something like that. Or can you go onto Facebook and find, you're obviously not going to be able to join their private Facebook group, but maybe can you see the number of people inside of that group? And like that will give you an indication of how many spots in their program they sold. So the more you can understand, the point of all of this is not to copy anybody. The point is to have a really strong pulse on what's going on in your marketplace so that ultimately you know how to stand out. Because the key here is that you do not want to just put out another course like everybody puts out in your market. You want to understand what is it that they're doing, and then how can I kind of use that information and make sure that I'm positioning myself in a unique and new kind of way. because that's going to be what gives you kind of a unique like selling proposition. It's going to allow you to stand out differently in the marketplace. And this is where you're going to also really lean into what are your signature stories and your signature experience that you've had, because nobody has had the same background or the same set of experiences that you have had. And that is what you are bringing to the table that is different. So you could, there's like 1,000 people who have a course about Instagram, but that doesn't mean you can't create a course about Instagram, because you can bring your unique background and your values and your experience and your flair and your different way of doing things and create something that's entirely different from what else is out there in the marketplace, even though there happens to be a zillion courses about Instagram already. So I really want you to use those questions to dig deeper into that for yourself. So let me give you like an example of when I was creating Course Creator School, which is my program for new online course creators. There's a lot of people who sell courses about courses, right? Like we all know that. And so I needed to think to myself, okay, what is it that's going to make me stand out? Well, number one, I have a different methodology than most people do around creating their courses, because the way I teach course creation is that you never create the course before you've sold it. So I have a methodology that I teach around pre-selling your course and actually filling spots in your course before you go and record module 1. So that was one thing that was unique to me and my program. The other thing is part of my own experience. Like I have done this for myself as a mom. So the first time I launched my very first course, I had a baby at home. Like I didn't build an entire business before I had kids. I blogged before I had kids, but I wasn't a course creator and I hadn't done any of this. So I have always been doing this in the margins of my life, like in the margins of having babies at home. So I would, create stuff during the nap, like the nap time hustle is what I would always call it, right? And then, eventually my daughter went to school and my son was in preschool. So for a time there, I did have dedicated work hours in the day, but I was still the one doing all the drop-offs and pickups and, taking my kids out of school early so we could go to like a fun gymnastics class and like really prioritizing. I will always prioritize my family life and motherhood over entrepreneurship. And so for me, that actually sets me apart, because a lot of the other people who sell courses about courses, either many of whom that I'm aware of aren't parents, or those who are, it just doesn't play into the marketing of their program that much. That's not what they have focused on. And for me, I knew that was actually a big part of what I wanted to focus on, was the fact that I can relate to having that same lifestyle as you, time crunched lifestyle of trying to build a business while also having young kids at home, or having a time crunch of any kind, whether it's kids or something different. So I actually relate to my audience deeply on that level. And that's one of the reasons why they might buy my program as opposed to somebody else's. So those are just a couple of examples of ways in which I knew I could stand out in my own marketplace. And there are, I have others that I identified, but I want you to think about that for yourself, are like what those things are for you in your market that's going to really allow you to stand out with your online course. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was really ultimately validating your online course idea by pre-selling it. And so the idea with pre-selling is that you create your course prototype, right? Like you have totally defined your signature method that you're going to teach in your course. The transformation that your course is going to provide for your students. Where you're taking them. The big benefits. You've mapped out what the course is going to look like and what's going to be included. You even have all of the bonuses and the whole format of how the course is going to happen. So you've created this incredible prototype, but you haven't actually built the entire thing yet. You've created the prototype, and then you're going to go out and you're going to sell the prototype. So you're going to do that by, hosting a webinar, by potentially having one-on-one conversations with people, by doing, by having like some great sales emails, having like a founding student launch essentially, and get some butts and seats for your course. And then once you've done that, the reason why we want to do that is because we will never know if an online course idea is a good one unless we get people to pay money for it. You cannot rely on like beta testers who get something for free beta testers might tell you that the course is amazing, but if they didn't pay money for it, you have not actually properly validated that idea in the marketplace. And the only way to validate the idea is to get paying clients through the door. And so that is why pre-selling is so important. And you can pre-sell even if you have a small audience. You don't need a giant audience of thousands and thousands to pre-sell a course. You just need some audience. You could have like a couple of hundred people on your email list, but a really amazing, deep understanding of the solution that they're seeking, and then an incredible offer that's going to provide that solution for them and get them through the door. So that's the fifth step here, is about pre-selling. So those are my kind of five cornerstone steps to really finding and choosing your profitable online course topic. So going through your skills, then your passions, then deep diving into what the true problem is in your marketplace that needs to be solved, then having a really clear idea on what your competitors are doing in your space. And then the fifth and final thing is to validate that course idea by pre-selling. So if you want more information specifically on that last piece, which is around that pre-selling piece, I have a brand new masterclass. It's an on-demand masterclass that you can sign up for at GemmaBonham-Carter.com/masterclass. And it's going to take you through more of the nitty-gritty about what that pre-selling actually looks like. I'm also going to share with you 3 big mistakes that new course creators are making time and time again. And I'll walk you through the sold method, which is my method to creating and launching and delivering your first online course. So head on over to GemmaBonham-Carter.com/masterclass to snag a seat. It's a 60-minute class, and I know that you'll love it. We've been getting incredible feedback from people who've been participating in that new class. But that's it for this episode, you guys. I would love to hear from you on Instagram. If you want to snap a picture of you listening to this episode, tag me in it. Let me know what your biggest takeaways were, or just slide into my DMs and let me know whether you've created a course already. Are you thinking about creating a course? Tell me more. I want to know what it's going to be about. Any questions that you have. I love chatting about this stuff. And go snag a seat in that masterclass. That's a wrap on this episode. I will see you in the next one. Ready to launch your own online course? Snag a seat in my free on-demand masterclass, How to Launch an Irresistible Online Course That Sells, even if you haven't nailed your niche, don't have a big audience, or think your market is saturated. In this class, I'm showing you how to validate your idea and get students before you've even created the course, the 3 factors that result in a course fail, and how to successfully launch a course without a giant audience. Plus, I'll be sharing the story of how I made $13,000 with my course before I even had an Instagram account. Snag a seat at GemmaBonham-Carter.com/masterclass and get ready to change your business and your life.